good morning. Welcome to a little what I eat in a day video, which I have not done in ages. Like, it's coming up to like probably about 6 to 7 months since I posted one of these, but I'm always asking for feedback on what content people want, and I know that people love the vlogs, but I want to make sure I'm like varying them slightly. So I'm going to try and do it like vlog-ish style, take through my day, but it's going to be more food focused. With me being in a diet phase, with me being on a fat loss phase, there may be reference to calories, there may be reference to dieting, there may be reference to body image. So if any of those topics are triggering for you, please feel free to go and watch one of my other vlogs, because this video probably won't be for you. And anyone else who is also on a cut at the moment, because this is my first cut in 2 years, I've got a lot of tips I use with myself and a lot of tips that I use with clients for coaching. So I'm going to give you those as well, so that we can all do a healthy and somewhat sustainable cut for summer, because the word sustainable when it comes to cutting gags me a little bit, because you don't want to be cutting forever. So it doesn't need to be sustainable forever, it just needs to be sustainable for the period in which you are doing it. So yeah, I have just made a morning coffee. Before that I've had water. I always try to have water before caffeine on a morning now. I noticed that my stomach was just really bad when I had coffee. TMI, but my stomach was just really bad when I would just have coffee first thing on the morning. So that is why I am not just having coffee straight away. So I've got myself a little coffee. I think me and Dan are gonna go and do a food shop maybe at Aldi, and I will take you through my food shop and what I'm getting, because I'm like on a very high protein, to be honest, pretty high carb and then moderate fat diet. That's my preference for any diet, whether I'm cutting, bulking or maintaining. I've done my check-in pictures this morning. I am due on my period, so my weight is actually a lot higher than usual at the moment, which is very, very normal. That's why it's really handy to weigh yourself a few times a week. If you are into weighing yourself, obviously you don't have to. I just do it for my coach so that she can see when things are moving in the right direction, but I pay more attention to how I look and how I feel, but for her it's helpful for knowing if she needs to drop my calories or increase cardio. Just a little fitness update before I get ready and me and Dad are going to go do the food shop. I am on 60 minutes cardio a week at the moment, and I've got an upper body session to do today, so I might take you along with me for the upper session and cardio. Yeah, welcome to a little what I eat in a day on my fat loss phase whilst retaining muscle mass. That's something else I might speak about in this video, because it's a lot easier than you might think. Okay, so we're back from Aldi. I'm just gonna run you through our food shop. In terms of like price and stuff, this is a bit more expensive than normal, but it's because we've run out of like some seasonings. Obviously I'm not going to be buying seasoning every single week, so all this I'm going to take off the toilet roll, because that's not part of the food shop, was about £40 taking off the toilet roll. But like I said, like things like cheese you wouldn't be buying every single week, and these aren't for me anyway, these are for Dan. But I've split it so you can sort of see the different categories. So all like carbs are sort of here. I do also already have some things in the cupboard like cereal and stuff, which are like go-to snacks for me. So I like to get the microwave rice at the moment, especially just because I don't have all the time in the world to be cooking at the moment. Obviously if you've got more time, I would recommend, it's a lot more cost effective to just buy a bag of rice, but at the moment this is a lot easier for me for quick lunches. Ready to wok noodles for the exact same reason, although to be fair I actually just prefer the taste of these. And then we've got some protein sandwich thins. Now protein products you need to watch out, because supermarkets will add like £2 to £3 to the price tag sometimes compared to the normal version. And in the UK, I don't know about anywhere else, the only legal requirement to be able to call something a protein version is it just has to have more protein than the normal version. Now that could be a good amount of extra protein. Equally, it could be like 1 gram extra. These have got, if we have a look, these have got 8 grams of protein, and the normal ones are 3.5, so it's not a huge difference. But when I am cutting and I don't have as many calories anyway, and it's just an extra, like getting an extra little 4-5 grams in here and there really does add up through the day. So that's why we get the high protein ones. So that's just a little note on protein snacks. Eggs, bacon for breakfast. These bacon medallions are incredible. 10 out of 10 recommend. To be honest, cutting or not cutting, but if you are cutting, 2 of these is 54 calories and 10 grams of protein. So this would be like a staple breakfast for me. This, an egg in a protein thin. It turns out, like, depending how much bacon I do, anywhere between 20 and 30 grams of protein. Good dent to start the day. So then protein sources, chicken is my main go-to, but I do like having some red meat as well. So I've got some 5% lean mince. In terms of like any protein snacks, these are like out of the shop, but these protein mousses are really nice, and they're not vegan, but they are technically lactose free because they have a low level of lactose. So I'm lactose intolerant. These personally do not irritate my stomach, but if you have a serious severe lactose intolerance, I'm not 100% sure. More carbs, but I put these with the veg, baking potatoes, because today I want to make some loaded fries. Seasoning, salt and pepper seasoning for some chicken, and then Cajun, we ran out of cumin, and some harissa seasoning. Harissa and Cajun are my favourite seasonings for chicken, and then cumin with loaded fries. I want to make like a chili thing, and I always put extra cumin in. My daddy taught me that. Beans, I'm not going to use those on the loaded fries today, but really good source of protein, good fibre, and if I make a chili, we'll put those in. Cheese, which is for Dan, he likes mozzarella and he likes having some parmesan as well. Red cabbage, red onion, tender stem broccoli and pepper for micronutrients. I am obsessed with pak choi at the moment, but they didn't have any, sadly. So that is the food shop. I am going to make some breakfast now, so I'm going to be using some bacon medallions. I will put an egg in it, and I'm going to pop it in a protein bin. I'm just having another coffee. I'm not going to take a pre-workout today, but I am about to start getting ready for the gym. I'm going to go do upper and some cardio. In terms of like a pre-workout meal, I only had my breakfast about an hour and a half ago, so I'm not going to eat anything else just yet. I'm going to wait until I get back, and then I'm going to have my lunch. Be a little diet hack. I'm not opposed to fasting. At first I wasn't hungry really at all on my cut, but I am a bit hungrier, and when you're on a cut or any sort of diet thing, it's important to notice and listen to your body and when you are hungriest, so you can work your diet around that best. I am hungriest later in the day. Usually it makes sense because I've moved more at that point. I've usually trained, I've trained 4 or 5 days a week, so I like to save more calories for later in the day, and because I've been getting hungrier later on in the day, I've been pushing my first meal back quite significantly. So I actually had my breakfast quite late today. It was closer to like 12 as opposed to like upon waking at like 8 AM. And yeah, just shortening that eating window down has really been helping me. So I've been pushing my first meal back, and then I do typically have like a lighter lunch and then a heavier tea. That is purely because I am hungrier later in the day. It's nothing to do with like it's this magic hack for fat loss or anything like that. It's just the cues and stuff that I've picked up on with my body. It makes it easier for me to stick to my deficit if I push my first meal back a little bit and I have like lighter meals at the start of the day and save more calories towards the end, because I'm a big snacker and I will not give up my snacks, like cereal, all that sort of stuff I absolutely love. But yeah, we're gonna get ready for the gym, and I will take you to the gym with me. We're hitting upper body, push and pull in one session. Because it's my birthday this week, I'm probably not going to do my second upper session just because I've got a lot of social plans towards the end of this week. So I'm just going to mishmash my sessions together, not do 2 sessions worth in one. I'm just going to pick like a few pull movements, a few push, and then I'm going to try and do 25-30 minutes cardio. But yeah, let's go to the gym. Okay, upper body session time. My mics were not charged, so I'm just going to voice over this workout. But first I'm just doing a nice little warming up my shoulders and my back, because I train push and pull together. I always use a long band for warm-ups. I've never realised how funny I look when I'm doing this until now. I think I look absolutely hilarious, but I always use a band. The only thing I tweak about this is I've realised there's a lot of sort of loose tension in the band. You want to keep as much tension in the band as possible when you're doing these, so I would probably wrap it around my hands, which I have been doing since then. Shoulder circles, I will never not do these, even though I look ridiculous. They just feel so good for my shoulders. So first movement that I'm doing is a lat pull down. If you don't already know, I train push and pull together because I have implants under the muscle and I can't train chest as a result, so a push session solely dedicated feels a bit redundant to me. Also, the fact that I don't like training my shoulders too much because my shoulders are a muscle that grows very, very, very quickly. And just for my goals, I don't wish to grow my shoulders too much. So I train push and pull mixed together. A little tip that I would really recommend when you are doing lat pull down, so obviously this is a plate loaded one, I'm just going on to my second set, is to try, and I still struggle with this sometimes because of years of trying to make my body look 10 out of 10 in my workout, or just what I saw other influencers doing. But when you're doing pull downs and like your back workouts, really try not to duck ass or like really push your hips back. Obviously, if you've got like hyperlordosis, like a genuine spinal issue, that's a different kettle of fish. But I'm really trying not to sort of sit with my ass really back on machines anymore, just to make sure that I'm keeping everything as tight as possible, especially because with my back sessions in particular, I'm moving a lot more weight than I used to. So moving on to a single arm row. Also, just a little reminder that lighting plays such a big role in how you look in your workout videos, guys. A client of mine was really upset and actually ended up deleting some of her form videos to send to me because she didn't like how she looked in the video. I would just like to remind you guys that the influencers and stuff that you see posting on social media, posting their workouts, and I'm including myself in this because I know my angles best as well, but I would also say I'm like in it, but also a victim of it, because sometimes when I film workouts, I think, oh my God, like I took a whole year off filming them for a multitude of reasons, but one of them was because body image issues, because what you see on social media is like the perfect angle for that person with the perfect lighting, and it takes so long to get, you know, the right lighting or the right angle that's most flattering. Like you can see the difference between how my back looks in this lighting compared to the previous. I feel like you can see a lot more definition. I feel like I look a lot more leaner. But the reality is my body looks both ways. It just depends on the lighting, the angle, the day of the week that it is, the camera that you're using, the lens that you're using. You know, you look how you look in that shot, but that doesn't mean to say that you walk around looking like that. So just a reminder for anyone getting discouraged about how they look when they film their workouts, you do not see how many clips are deleted from influencer workouts. You don't see how many times they move the camera. Film the damn workouts, whether it's for form or you want to post it yourself. Yeah, that's just a little bit of a uplifting message. I'm now doing dumbbell shoulder presses. Yeah, there isn't really much to say about these. If you want form tips, I've done a very similar upper body session in my full week of workouts video. Then moving on to chest supported lateral raises. I way prefer doing chest supported with these. I am a girly with very overactive traps. I breathe, I sniff, I inhale air near a weight and my traps fucking grow. It's infuriating and it actually causes me pain. But since I started doing these chest supported, I don't know what it is about it. I'm not going to pretend that I do know what it is about it. It's really helped me take my traps out of the movement. And I really, really like doing these. You can do these seated or standing. My gym got new benches recently, which makes it really uncomfortable to do seated, so I'm doing them standing. Moving on to cardio. This is my cardio routine at the moment. I'm doing 60 minutes of LISS a week to be split no shorter than 20 minutes per session. So I'm either doing 3 times 20 minutes per week, or I'm doing 2 times 30 minutes. My cardio of choice is the Stairmaster, but I will say that my legs did need to adapt to it at first. It did actually hamper with my training recovery, but now I'm all good in the hood. So I'm okay to continue with this. I'm not doing HIIT. I like to do LISS because my main priority on my cut is obviously cutting down body fat, but keeping my muscle mass. So this doesn't interfere with my weight training sessions, which means I can push hard so I can maintain that hard earned muscle mass. But that is my upper and cardio session. I'm gonna snack on this whilst I'm making my lunch. Like I said earlier, these don't irritate my stomach and it's just like so refreshing. It's very hot outside, so I'm gonna have this, and also it's a bit of protein in, which we love. Obviously anabolic window, not really a thing in the sense that, well, not in the way that people pushed it as before. Normally, to be fair, I would try and space my protein out a little bit more, but as my lunch is going to take maybe half an hour to cook anyway, meh, and I've pushed my food back a bit too late today, so I'm just going to focus on my total intake. Okay, so this is what we're going to be cooking up lunch-wise. I'm going to do 1 chicken breast fillet. I'm going to make like a salad bowl thing. 1 chicken breast fillet. Half a bag of this lime and coriander rice. I'm gonna have some pak choy, and then I've got a new obsession with like a red cabbage and red onion like raw slaw thing with balsamic vinegar on it, and I'll have like quite a bit of that because it's super low in calories and gets a lot more volume in. Same with the pak choy. I will probably actually just have this whole pak choy because I'm feeling hungry. And then for my seasoning, I want to mix Cajun and harissa. This could go wrong, I've not tried it before, but we're going to give it a bloody go. And yeah, I'm just going to make myself a little, I say little, it'll probably be quite big with the veg, but a little salad bowl because it's hot outside.
Everything goes right. I can feel the breeze. Euphoric delight. Only you and me. Pour your honey, sickly sweet. Keeps me coming, got me weak. You could kill me, I'd still be. Darling, you're number 6 feet deep. Oh, it's real hard to break this habit.
Absolute final finishing touch to my salad now that we're done with the aesthetic shite is Frank's hot sauce. And if you are a hot sauce lover, let me put you onto this Amazon find. This is multiple litres of Frank's hot sauce, and it's the best thing I ever bought because I was getting the little glass jars and there's barely anything in them. We were running out of them within like a week. I put hot sauce on most things, to be honest. This is my lunch. Yeah, I'm gonna sit and eat my salad now. I've got so much work to do, so I'm gonna be eating and working, and then I'm just gonna work for the next few hours. And I'll probably see you next when I make my tea, and I will speak to you a bit more about like retaining muscle mass on a cut. But as you can see, this is like a prime example, by the way. When people talk about volume eating, which is one of my biggest hacks as well, volume eating is essentially opting for foods which are low in calories that you can fill your diet up with, which will help you to feel fuller. I would put just staying hydrated in general under that, because I probably had about 2.5 litres of water just whilst I was in the gym, especially because I was doing cardio. And the more hydrated I stay, the less hungry I am. And then also in terms of volume eating, if you are currently like trying to, the worst thing you can do, especially if you've gone from a bulk to a cut, is to try and eat the exact same foods. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't have like, you know, a creamy pasta dish when you're on a cut, because you can. I still have things like that from time to time. But if you just try and keep your diet the exact same, and all you do is take things away, so all you do is keep the diet the same but just reduce portion sizes, you'll probably actually be quite hungry, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. Still have those meals that you enjoyed when you were eating a bit more calories, but bulk them out with things like veggies and salad, because they're so low in calories. I personally don't actually track veggies or salad, just because I have a very consistent amount each day, and they are literally so low in calories that it, personally for me, tracking veg is a step too far. It's not something that I'm bothered about doing. But the veg, like this meal without the veg would be a lot smaller, but because I've obviously got like the raw slaw on there and the pak choy, this is gonna probably keep me full for like the next few hours. Also, it's just a really good way of getting your micronutrients in. So if you're cutting, try next time you have one of your main meals, not just making a smaller portion than what you used to before, but also make like a side salad or a side of like roasted veggies. I am gonna eat this now, and I will speak to you Probably when I'm making my tea for me and Dan. As we can see, I have been prepping tea and I've been snacking on some rice cakes. Just for transparency, I've had maybe like 3 or 4 of these. Nothing crazy, I just wanted something to snack on whilst I'm prepping mine and Dan's evening meal. So I'm going to do like a loaded fry thing. The reason why I've just like prepped this and not filmed it is because I feel like there's only so much time-lapsing we can do in one video. So I didn't want to time-lapse me chopping a pepper again. I might time-lapse me maybe cooking the mince. We might get an aesthetic number on there. But yeah, these are so good. And potatoes, if you are on a diet, potatoes are an amazing carb source. You know me, when you're cutting, you do not cut carbs out. You do not need to go on a no carb keto diet. You can have carbs in your diet, and I have all carbs. I will eat pasta, I will eat rice, but I especially love having potatoes as a carb source when I'm cutting, for the same reason I mentioned earlier. It's an amazing volume food. You can have so much potato and it's a lot lower in calorie than other very like filling carb sources. So these are the fries. I've just popped some salt, oil, because I will not scrape on oil when it comes to cutting. Sorry, that is something I'm willing to use. Plus my diet is quite low in fats anyway, so it's a good way for me to get some fats in. And then I've chopped up an orange pepper here, which I'm going to put in the chili that I'm going to make. I'm not going to use this whole pack. I'll probably use maybe half this pack, and then me and Dan will have half each. Cook it up with some seasoning to make it like a chili sort of vibe, and then turn them into loaded fries. But I'll show you the process of that. But yeah, I am prepping tea now so that it's done. And of course, we are watching, I'm watching Beyonce Homecoming.
Check. AK-47 clips for breakfast. Tell your niggas that you bout to end up on that checklist. List that'll have your neighborhood on search watch. Bad bitches running through the water like it's Baywatch. Stop with my goofy ass. Crack a couple jokes to the point where you're blunted and blinded from my ugly ass.
We just take a moment. How good does this look? So we've got the fries underneath and then the chili on top with a little bit of cheese, and I did put on a bit more of the raw slaw, just because the more I thought about it, it does actually go quite well, and it'll cool the dish down a little bit, because these plates are piping hot. When you put it back in the oven, just put it in until the cheese melts, if you put cheese on it, or until the whole thing sort of warms back up again. I'm going to put a bit of hot sauce on this, and then this is Dan's. He's got a slightly bigger portion of the slaw, slightly bigger portion of cheese as well. The reason why I've done less is because, first of all, I want to have more calories for my cereal. I'm being strategic. But secondly, this much cheese will, my stomach says no. My stomach says we can probably deal with this. So just proof that you do not have to eat like boring chicken and rice and that's the only thing. Like, stick to staple ingredients. Yes, it might be a good idea, but you can make some really nice meals. This is one of my go-tos at the moment, and it is so filling. So filling. Perfect for cutting.
The beanie 4 bags equates to 66 or more bought from the supermarket.
£18 and £14, that's 4 bag.
The Sainsbury's would be a whopping £106.
Hello, so this is going to conclude my full day of eating. I've just made a bowl of cereal, which is a hefty bowl. This is what I mean when I say I like to have like a big snack before bed. Not going to be going to sleep anytime soon, but I like having a big snack. So for me personally, the tips I've mentioned about like pushing meals back and stuff really helps, because that's when my appetite is biggest. Obviously, if your appetite is bigger in the morning, save more calories for the morning time, get more calories in the morning. The only other thing is my creatine, which I'm going to be taking as well. Creatine, it's just creatine monohydrate, that's all you need. You don't need to be looking for anything fancy, anything super expensive. I know that there's things like Crea Pure and other things, but I personally just feel like all the research that we have, when people bang on about how like it's the most researched supplement, etc., is done on creatine monohydrate, not these new ones that are suspiciously like £15 more a tub. Feel like some of the marketing claims maybe exaggerated slightly in terms of the differences between that and normal creatine. I just feel like we don't know enough yet, so I'm sticking with normal creatine for now, and that will be the only supplement that I actually take today, which just proves as well, by the way, you do not need, to be fair, I suppose the mousse counts as like a protein supplement, but you don't need to have like shakes per se to hit your protein intake. I'm not going to go over calories, but like I've just finished tracking, I've had 152 grams of protein today. Not one shake consumed. I just wanted to mention that I do still take creatine when I'm cutting, because I don't know why, but I feel like this, just from questions I get asked sometimes and the way it's spoken about online, this is perceived as like a bulking supplement or like a mass gaining type supplement. It's not. This is something that, to see the benefits of, you need to be taking consistently. Now, yes, you could stop taking it when you start cutting, but I don't really see the purpose in doing that, because it's coming off this will not help with fat loss. Coming off this will drop your water weight down, because being on creatine does make you hold on to more water weight, but it's not just floating around your body making you look puffy or bloated, it's drawn into your muscles, so it makes your muscles look bigger. So if anything, for me going on a cut, I'm going to be keeping up with my creatine, because I want my muscles to stay looking nice and full for as long as possible, and this actually helps with that. So for anyone who's been advised to come off creatine when they're cutting, I would like to give you another perspective and probably encourage you to keep taking it, especially because a lot of the research as well points towards like cognitive benefits for this as well. Obviously we don't know yet, but like long term this might be really, really good for like memory and all that sort of stuff. But I will take this regardless of cutting or bulking, and that is the only supplement that I will take every single day without fail. Now on to the little topic that I wanted to choose to discuss in this video. It might be in the title somewhere, which is retaining muscle mass on a fat loss phase, because I want to put some minds at ease, because I feel like I'm going to give you some tips for it, but also I feel like it's made out as though if you go into a cut you are 100% going to lose your gains. The first thing that needs to be addressed is, quite often it's very common for women to go into a cutting phase and they will say that they've lost their glutes when they go on a cut. Now, provided you've done a sensible cut, it's not done for too long and it's not an aggressive deficit, and you haven't completely changed your training program and you're still getting a good protein intake in, the chances are you've just lost body fat around your glutes, not your actual glute muscle. So you've lost size on your bum, not necessarily your actual glute muscle. Because when we go on gaining phases, I do it too, we like to think every single ounce of size that we've put onto an area that we wanted to grow is pure muscle mass, but it's not. It's not. You will gain fat everywhere. Granted, you might gain only a little bit in a certain area, but you will gain fat everywhere. So don't think that you're going to lose loads and loads and loads of muscle mass when you go on a cut. If you go on a sensible cut and you lose all your muscle and just look the exact same as you did before you started a growth phase, you probably either didn't do the growth phase properly, or you didn't spend long enough in the growth phase to actually build a substantial amount of muscle. That is my opinion, and that's something that I've seen happen from coaching for the past few years with a lot of clients who come to me. So doing a proper growth phase is so important if you are eventually going to want to cut and retain that muscle mass. You've got to make sure that you've got muscle mass, not just body fat in the area. So yeah, losing gains is not like this inevitable thing where you're going to become absolutely tiny. Obviously, if you take things too far, you can. But the most important things, the most important tips that I follow and the tips that I can give you is try and keep your carb intake on the higher side. First of all, energy for your workouts. It's really, really, really important for energy for your workouts. Second of all, I want you to think of your muscles like a balloon, and carbs as a macronutrient will help to keep your muscles, you know, blown up like a balloon. So not like a 5-day balloon, like a first day put up balloon. Having a good carb intake will help to keep your muscles looking fuller, keeps your glycogen stores fuller within your muscles, and it just makes your muscles look fuller. So I would really recommend trying to keep your carb intake on the higher end for that purpose. So would really, really, really recommend not cutting carbs, contrary to popular belief. Obviously, they might need to come down a bit in line with your new calories. If you're going into a cut from a bulk, they might need to come down a bit, but they don't need to be super low. Try and keep them as high as you can. Protein, of course, this is really, really important. You want to make sure that you are getting enough protein in. So obviously the guideline is 0.8 to, I think it's 1.1 now, grams per pound of body weight. You want to make sure, in my opinion, when you cut in, that you're on the higher end of that, just because I feel like there isn't really a trade-off in terms of like cons from doing that, but there might be like an enhancement to your recovery between sessions, and just hanging on to that muscle mass. So keep your carb intake nice and high as possible. Protein intake, you don't want to slash that down super low, you want to keep that high. And in terms of ranges, I would personally suggest that you go with the higher end when it comes to hitting your protein intake. Another thing is, if you are going to add in cardio, getting into like the training side of things, first of all, you don't have to do cardio on a cut, but if you are going to incorporate cardio, I would recommend going for something low intensity, especially at the start, if you're just starting to build up like your cardiovascular endurance and sort of wellness, fitness, all that sort of stuff. Just because if you are going in with like really, really intense cardio, you might not be able to recover from that for your sessions. Something to consider, which I feel like might be niche, but I've noticed it, and I've noticed it with clients as well. The Stairmaster, I love it. It's probably my favourite for cardio. Be very careful with not overdoing it on the Stairmaster, because I do find with clients and with myself, sometimes if I do too much on the Stairmaster, it messes with my leg sessions. I feel like my legs and quads and stuff swell, and they do get a bit sore from it. So I'm not saying don't go on the stairs, I'm just saying pick your cardio wisely. Don't do like HIIT straight away. I'm not saying don't do HIIT full stop. I'm just saying you might want to go with more low intensity steady state cardio that will still drive your expenditure up, but it's going to be easier to recover from, because then that leads me on to your next point. Your training intensity needs to be there. So if you're hammering yourself with HIIT cardio all the time and it's having an impact on your weight sessions, that will impact the muscle mass that you are holding on to. Because this is my favorite quote: what grows muscle mass the best is going to be what maintains it the best. Do not switch to like a high rep 1 minute rest between sets training program just because you're on a cut and you feel like you need to be sweating and all that sort of stuff. What built you muscle best is what's going to be maintaining it best. So stick as closely to what you've been doing as possible. Obviously, some people with a new phase, they like to write a new program. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to stick with the exact same program, but in terms of like the way that you lay out your training, don't go to doing like, you know, endurance sort of reps, like super high reps, super low weight, 1 minute rest between sets, because that is not what built your muscle, and it's not going to be the best thing for maintaining it. You want to make sure that you're still having adequate rest between sets. You want to make sure that you are still pushing yourself close to failure. You are not leaving loads and loads and loads of reps in the tank. And there's actually some research that's come out recently looking at failure, and it is actually pointing towards, which it hasn't before when it's been looked at, training to actual failure, producing like a significant difference when it comes to muscle growth. Strength training is a different thing, but when it comes to muscle growth, there is actually a big difference between training to failure and training close to failure. So you really need to make sure that your intensity is there in your training sessions and you are still training close to or to failure. Obviously, I feel like we don't know enough yet, because those two studies are very conflicting, so I'd like to see a sort of, yeah, I don't want to go either side. I'm just going to say maybe this week in your training you might want to try pushing some of your sets to absolute failure. Also, I'd recommend doing that sometimes anyway, because sometimes you might think your reps in reserve is like 1 to 2. If you actually try and push yourself to failure, you might realise it was actually closer to like a 6, 7, maybe even an 8. So you have to make sure that you are keeping up with a training program that was similar in terms of like the way that you are training to what you were doing when you built muscle. You do not need to turn into like this sweat machine. Obviously, if your goals have just completely changed and you're not bothered about maintaining muscle mass and you just want to be like cardiovascular queen and that's what you want to do, and you want to do the high reps and the short rests, that's fine. But I'm talking to the people who want to retain muscle mass, because that is not going to be your best port of call if you want to retain muscle mass whilst you are on a cut. Chances of you losing much muscle mass, if any at all, if you follow everything I've just said are very, very, very slim. Those are my best tips. Those are tips I use with clients. Those are tips I am currently using with myself. And just keep in mind that just because you are getting smaller, especially ladies, just because you are getting smaller around the bum region, it does not mean that you are losing muscle. You are highly likely losing body fat in that area, and that's completely normal. Size is going to come off everywhere. Try not to worry too much about it, because like I just said, size will come off everywhere. So proportionally, you might end up looking like you did like peak of a growth phase, just like a smaller version, if that makes sense. It just might take a while for like your body fat in certain areas to like balance back out to proportionally sort of look the same, just on a smaller scale, which is why it's important, like with a cut, you do need to stick to it. You can't just like, if you do want to do it anyway, you don't have to do it, but if you want to stick to a cut, you need to stick to it. Yeah, you don't need to worry about losing muscle mass when you go on a cut, but if you are worried, those are my absolute best tips. The training thing is so important. That would probably be my most important tip, because I feel like growing muscle, let's be honest, is a lot harder. Let me be clear, growing muscle is a lot harder than maintaining muscle, but I just feel like so many people overlook the training aspect when it comes to cutting when they are interested in retaining muscle mass. They might, like, because they're eating less, this can happen further down the line. Energy is obviously lower, there's less energy going into your body, so your output is going to be worse. You might lose strength in time, but a lot of people go into a cut with the mindset of, oh, I'm eating less, so I will be weaker, so they pick up lighter weights. Don't do that. Try and go in with the weights that you were going in with the week before, and try and even progressively overload. It's not impossible to progressively overload when you are on a cut, and that is one of the best ways to maybe even be able to build some muscle in a deficit, because that's not impossible either. But if you are just like getting weaker and weaker and weaker in your deficit right from the get-go, one, I would probably look at your calories and recovery and stuff, because that shouldn't be happening straight away. But two, if you are just doing that for like the entirety of your cut from day one, you're just really like regressing with your training, you are probably at more risk of losing muscle mass. But it is inevitable that at some point in a cut you might get weaker. That is definitely a very real possibility. But go into the gym with the same mindset that you had when you were bulking. Don't even think about the fact that you are cutting. Go in, lift what you can, try and beat the previous week's numbers. If you can't, don't stress, but always be trying to keep your strength as high as possible. My cereal's gone so soggy. I hope you enjoyed this little full day of eating. I've really enjoyed filming it for you. Let me know if you've got any questions about anything I've just gone over when it comes to fat loss and retaining muscle mass, and any questions you've got, any questions about creatine maybe, the training, anything. Any particular sort of what I eat in a days or vlogs or topics you want me to cover in vlogs, please leave them below, because I do like to sort of pick a topic for each video. But yeah, have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon.